Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious. Here we are in finally sunny Florida again, though we might have some rain over the weekend, our beautiful peninsula there. And we think of all the people hit by the hurricane over this week, and we're not out of the woods. We're right in the middle of hurricane season, so we're expecting more of that today. But glad that we're with us on a TGIF Friday. Got Selvin Trotter manning the Streamlabs program console today, as we've given Marty a day off for some personal business to take care of. This is like, as I look up on my board, Selvin, this is going to be like our 885th episode of Stay Curious today. So thank you for jumping in there, Selvin. How are you, buddy?
I'm all right.
Good. Selvin's our bookkeeper here at the American Space Museum, and of course at a nonprofit, everybody does three things at one time. And we've had a good week, some good visitors in the building, despite being off a whole day there for the hurricane. So we're going to jump into a program today. We're going to update you about that little rover, and I mean it's a little rover, but it's doing a lot of big things at the South Pole of the Moon, as India has established themselves as a really a superpower now in the space business, as they join America, Russia, and China as the only countries that have safely landed anything on the moon. And we're going to get you updated with that. We're going to tell you when the Crew 6 is going to return in their Dragon capsule. Is it Enterprise? I forget which is the name of that. We'll revisit that in a minute. Endeavor's the one that's coming back. So, but we got a cool picture of two Crew Dragons docked at the International Space Station that you might not have seen. But as always, we love our astronauts in our community. 604 human beings can say that they orbited the Earth. Of course, bunches of them have passed away, and there are 74 women that can say they orbited the Earth in the 63 years that we've been, or 62 years since 1961, orbiting humans around the Earth. Only 604, okay? 4 of them are up there now, coming back. This one's got his birthday today. Happy birthday to Mr. Chris Ferguson here. There's Fergie, 62 years old, the last commander of a space shuttle mission. Christopher John Fergie Ferguson was born September 1st, 1961 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's a retired U.S. Navy captain. He was pilot of Shuttle Atlantis STS-115 in September 2006, and then he commanded STS-126 on Endeavor. And in 2011, he was assigned the commander of 135 Atlantis, which was the final mission of the program. He retired after Atlantis to become the director of crew and mission operations at Boeing's commercial crew program with their Starliner. Let me get back there. I'm going the wrong way, Peach Fuzz. There's Fergie. And he was assigned to the first test flight of the Starliner, but he stepped down over 2 years ago, and Starliner still hasn't flown with a lot of massive problems. The latest, the electrical wiring was not waterproof for some reason, or fireproofed, I think it was. Yeah, it was fireproof, not waterproof. Anyway, Ferguson's still part of Boeing's commercial crew program as his mission control leader there. Those of you from Philadelphia area, Ferguson attended and graduated the Archbishop Ryan High School, and he got a Bachelor of Science degree from Drexel University and his master's from the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School. So happy birthday, 62 years old to Fergie. I met him at one of the last time they had a parade in Cocoa Beach. That was about 4 years ago. And really fun guy, and we'd love to see him out the astronaut encounter once he retires. So the feature of today's program is this spacecraft shown in the white room. That is the combined Pragyan moon rover and the Vikram Vikram is the lander on top there. The rover's not shown here. It's inside the side pod there. Landing on the moon Wednesday, almost 2 weeks ago. This there is the picture of the rover on the surface of the moon, south pole of the moon, as taken by the moon rover Pragyan, Pragyan, Pragyan. And the mothership is called Vikram. India's lander has achieved something that the Russia didn't. We'll talk about that in a minute, as their Russian Luna 25 crashed. This one soft landed on the moon. Wondered about the size of this, Selvin. It's about 6 feet tall. Okay, so it's about 6 feet tall by 6 feet wide. Not really big. It weighs almost 1.5 tons, though. And let me get my details on the rover there. 6 feet tall, 3,500 pounds. The spot near where it's landed on the South Pole is rich in water, we feel. You see some things hanging off of this lander there, one touching the ground. Those are intentional. In fact, the one touching the ground is a drill that drilled 3 inches. It drilled how many inches? It drilled 4 inches deep into the lunar regolith to understand how temperature affects the soil. And one of its incredible findings already is the temperature drops steeply from the surface of the moon to just inches underneath, all right? The soil at the top at this picture is 140 degrees or Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius for Robert Law up there in Scotland. 140 degrees, boiling is like 120 degrees. But when they went 3 inches below the surface with this probe, it is 14 degrees Fahrenheit, all right, minus 10 degrees Celsius. That is a 125 degree drop from the surface to just 3 inches below the surface. This is very significant for creating structures that will be covered up with lunar regolith. That's what they call the soil. The lunar regolith is about like talcum powder. If the sand on the beach is just a few miles from me, are about 2 centimeters, or I mean millimeters, or thousandths of a meter, very tiny. These are half that size, about 1 millimeter. So half the size of a grain of sand is what the lunar soil is. Not like sand at all. And now we know, thanks to the Vikram lander, that just 3 inches underneath there, it can be 100 or 120 degrees cooler than the surface. Sulfur has also been found in small quantities, as have a lot of the minerals and so forth needed. There's aluminum, there's a little bit of iron, not much. That's what separates the moon from the Earth, is the lack of iron. So it's now halfway through its planned lifetime, as neither the rover nor the lander are expected to survive the 2-week lunar night. All right, that's going to come on here next end of next week, in about a week. The solar-powered batteries are not powerful enough to keep systems going when the temperatures plummet, when darkness covers the lunar surface. So they're getting all the data they can quickly. Here is the photograph of the lander that India released, the Chandrayaan-3 lander, now called Vikram, in Pragyan. This captured by their India rover. So you can see the words say location. You can see the bright spot of the lander, 6 feet tall, and a strong shadow to the left. It's obviously not a crater shadow, but a man-made object there. So there we are seeing. This is the South Pole, heavily cratered, and some of the craters, as you see the one in the upper right, may never get sunlight because of that lunar shadow. Therefore, ice could be in that crater. Got a question there, Selvin?
Yeah, Dave wants to know, how long is the lander and the rover expected to operate?
Who that's that?
Dave Stingy.
Dave Stangy, how you doing, Dave? And his granddaughter, by the way, is our youngest watcher. She's an infant, just about 3 months old, I think. There, Dave. He sent me a picture of her watching Stay Curious on their big flat screen TV on the wall. And what is that young lady's name there? He'll tell us there in a minute. There, but appreciate Dave Stangy up there in Michigan, one of our great top watchers of Stay Curious there. It's basically a 2-week mission because the lunar day is 2 weeks old and then the lunar night's 2 weeks old. So they may have a little extra day or two at the South Pole where they might be getting more sunlight. Think of the Arctic Circle and where the sun may never set at certain points along there. But they're very strongly cast shadows. As you see, all these craters are filled with a lot of darkness, shadow, and that's where we think ice is. Where'd the ice come from, Selvin? From comets that have bombarded the moon for millions and millions of years, and it's for being your history. Let's look at this. Is the we're going to get back to Pragyan rover and Vikram on the moon, but this is a similar looking object, but this is the Russia Lunar 25 in the White Room. All right, technicians working on it there. You can get the size of it. Again, it's about, a 6 foot, maybe 8 feet tall, so forth. But this failed and crashed into the moon last week and left a 33-foot wide crater. Well, an ambitious mission failed for Russia. They have not tried to go on the moon for 47 years. And the destruction of this robotic Luna 25 probe reflects the endemic problems that have dogged the Russian space agency since the 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union. These include the loss of key technologies in the post-Soviet industrial meltdown and the impacts by the Western sanctions caused by the Ukraine invasion, and a huge brain drain and widespread corruption is going on in Roscosmos. Even the head of Roscosmos, Yuri Borisov, said this week that the lack of expertise due to the long break in lunar research created this failed mission of Luna 25. And our lunar rover, our lunar orbiter, not rover, lunar orbiter has been, or lunar reconnaissance orbiter, been orbiting the moon for about 12 years. This is a before picture, and here's the after picture. We're in the middle, the bright white area with the gray path of debris. That is Luna 25, where it met its demise. Russia says that it had a problem in its steering jet's landing. It probably threw it into a spin and crashed into the moon. They knew where it crashed, I guess, from some of the telemetry. But there's before and after, clearly an impact area of the Luna 25 unmanned spacecraft, a 33-foot wide crater there. The last time Russia had a success was in 1976 when their Luna 24 robot landed on the moon. It scooped up 6 ounces of lunar soil and returned it to Earth in Russia's third successful robotic lunar sample return mission. They did that 3 times, brought back ounces of the lunar soil. Of course, 12 Americans have walked on the moon about 50 years ago, the last ones, over 50 years ago, because we celebrated that December last year. So let's get back. Want to just verify our rover here, Nick Talik, who is a Russian cosmonaut in training, a private citizen that is trained to be a Russian cosmonaut. He's been back up twice on missions. He's one of those multimillionaires that's buying his way to space. And Nick was in our museum Monday. It was fun to talk to him. And when I asked him about what he's got a lot of Russian friends in Star City. He's born in Australia but grew up in Greece. He said he's got $9 million deposit down on his $21 million seat to ride a Soyuz spacecraft to the International Space Station here in the next year or so. Of course, it crossed my mind. Would you like to write a check for our museum here? And we'll put your name on the back of it. Their American Space Museum by you, Nick. But of course, I didn't say anything like that to him. But it always makes you wonder because people love our place here. And as a nonprofit, we certainly are always looking for financial help. But this young man said the people in Russia he talked to, heads have been fired already. Roscosmos is completely embarrassed that they failed and India succeeded. After all, India is the new kid on the block, and they've upstaged the world premier Russia space agency that led in so many things in the 1960s. And then, of course, in the moon race with America, we beat them. But they've pioneered the space station technology, no doubt. That's why we're doing so well. And Russia, you got to get your act together. India is a big player now. And what's happening at the south pole of the moon, where we know there's just thousands and thousands of tons of ice underneath the regolith there. How do we know that? From other probes that America sent that has analyzed all this through radar and the scientific investigation that they know from lunar orbit. So India has established a base on the south pole of the moon where China wants to go. They have a very ambitious program we talked about last week where the International Lunar Research Center, they call it, but it's all China, wants to build a factory right there on the moon's south pole before 2030, and one of those mini factories is going to make bricks out of lunar regolith, lunar soil, and the ice that it finds there. First, they got to find the ice and then melt it, all right? And but this is an ambitious thing China wants to do. They've got it on the books, an unmanned vehicle to make bricks out of lunar soil and the water that's there. And guess what? Those bricks are going to look like Legos, of course. That'll fit everything. So that's why everybody's flocking to the south pole of the moon. Let's look at that little rover. And talking with my executive director, Karan Conklin, who's also our executive producer here, she reminded me that she read where those rear wheels are supposed to have imprints of the Indian Space Agency's seal, as well as the India as a special official emblem on it. I was just looking at on the internet. There's some conjecture whether they're actually there and whether people can see them. I can't see them on this picture. They're supposed to be on the rear wheels there. So some are wondering if that's just an urban myth, but someone will get to the bottom of it. This little rover almost went into this crater. It had to stop short of it. The artificial intelligence told it that it was, too deep and dangerous, so it had to backtrack. And we'll show you the backtracking there in a minute. There again, let me take the logo off there. There in the upper left-hand corner, you see the rover. It's going down the tracks there of the Vikram lander. Pragyan I almost see some little marks in that left wheel, okay, that could be imprints on the moon. And of course, if those rover tracks are going to last for 1 million years, there's virtually nothing to tear it down, erode it, except micrometeorites. This is where it went one direction, then backed up the other direction. You can see the multiple tracks on this rover. How big is this little rover? It has 6 wheels. It is basically 3 foot by 1.5 feet. All right, 3 foot by 16 inches. Not very big. 3 feet by 16 inches wide. Okay, that's a big microwave oven. So it's very small, but it has been doing the job. And there's an artist's conception of what the rover tracks would look like here. the India crown up at the top, and the India Space Agency emblem there on the bottom in this artist rendering. Again, what these imprints are supposed to look like on the moon. So very cool. After all, the Jet Propulsion Lab engineers in Pasadena, California, they put an imprint on the rover wheels on Mars that do a Morse code that spell out Jet Propulsion Lab, or JPL. And I'm sure they put other things in there, those intelligent nerds there to Jet Propulsion Lab, always thinking of ways to leave their imprints everywhere they go. But like we said, the rear wheels leave imprints of the Space Agency ISRO and the national emblem depicting the lion capital of Arshaka at Sarnath on the lunar surface, symbolizing their presence on the moon. Isn't that cool? That little rover up there in the upper left-hand corner. It did go over that crater, by the way. Look at that. That first one we saw, I can't believe that it drove over it and didn't go around it to the left. Could have got stuck in that easily. Look at those other craters that it missed. So 6 wheels, an engineering triumph. India is celebrating as a nation of 1.3 billion human beings their triumph, and it's got to be extra sweet that they triumphed over the much experienced Russia. Well, let's look at this beautiful picture of 2 SpaceX Crew Dragons docked to the International Space Station. Who'd have thunk that 5 years ago, Selvin? I thought for sure we'd have a Boeing Starliner up there way before the SpaceX, but this is the 11th crewed mission for SpaceX in 3 years and 0 for Boeing Starliner. It is fraught with problems. Well, this is a beautiful sight. I'm not sure which one's Endeavour that's going to come back. Both of these are used spacecraft, but the Crew Dragon capsule of the 6 crew is now scheduled to undock from the ISS on Sunday at 7:05 a.m. They delayed everything 24 hours, Selvin. And so they're going to undock Sunday morning at 7:05 a.m. and then splash down about 19 hours later. With Sunday night, it's going to be 12:07 a.m., technically Monday morning. That schedule depends on weather conditions. Of course, it's been pushed back 24 hours because of the choppiness of the water after the Hurricane Idalia went by. They will now depart no earlier than Sunday, 7:05 a.m. I can watch that, and then the Formula One Grand Prix of Italy in Monza is at 9 o'clock, Selvin. So I'm going to have a fun Sunday morning. Let's see, who's coming back? These guys are coming back. You got at the bottom there is Steve Bowen. Woody Hoberg is to his right. You got Steve Bowen. At the bottom to the left clockwise is Sultan Al Nayeda of the United Arab Emirates. You've got then Woody, Woody's at the top. Warren Woody Hobaugh. And then you've got the Russian, Andrei Fedorov. They've been up there 6 months. They were launched March 3rd. We watched them launch from the Space Coast here. And we hope that they have a safe trip back. Here is the entire Expedition 6970 crew. Just they're weightless. They're not showing off that they're weightless there, though. But that's all 11 crew members up there and 3 on the Russian Tangong space station. That makes 14 humans orbiting the Earth. The record, by the way, is 18. We've had 14 up there tied 3 or 4 times now. But the 18 was when that Axiom crew was up there briefly and coming back when the Chinese had 3 on theirs. So we briefly had 18 people up there in space. That is the record. I love this quote from Sultan Al Nayeda. He says this of his 6-month journey in space. We began the mission as crewmates, but now we're brothers. Over the last 6 months, I gained a new family with whom I shared expertise, traditions, and cultures and experienced beautiful and challenging moments while creating unforgettable memories together. That is from the Sultan from the United Arab Emirates. And what a beautiful way to sum up this harmony, this brother and sisterhood on the International Space Station. An absolute demonstration of how humans should exist on Earth with no borders except that beautiful blue border is keeping us alive. Why doesn't the world look up and see what 5 countries represented there, and each one of them knows that they depend on each other to live through this experience in the unforgiving world of outer space. They're in outer space. That is so incredible, and we make it look so easy. So we hope that the Crew 6 has a good trip back. I'm not so certain, Selvin, that we might be able to see the reentry flames of the spacecraft coming in. They either come in off Jacksonville on the East Coast, where there's a big naval port, of course, or on the Gulf side near Pensacola, where another naval base is. So they make that decision, of course, before they fire the retro rockets Sunday night and land after 12:07 a.m. Sunday night, technically Monday morning. So might be able to see that. I'll be out looking for it, and I'll be asking some of my rocket friends like Carlton Bailey if we can see them streaking in here like they could sometimes the Apollo astronauts. So, well, everybody, we hope that you've enjoyed this week of Stay Curious. We've moved our programming completely to YouTube. We do have a link on Facebook, and it seems like a lot of you are finding us there. You don't have to join YouTube or anything. It's completely free. And we did want to mention that we still miss our rocket hobo, Ozzy Osband. But this week I got to meet his brother, Steve, come in from New York. There is Steve Osband holding his brother's green polo shirt there with his rocket hobo patch on it. This was a fixture of Ozzy's out there at Spaceview Park. Steve, thank you for sharing things with your brother. He's here getting things arranged, but I'm so happy that he got to tell us that his brother Ozzy's going to be interred at the National Cemetery at Cape Canaveral, technically the Cape Canaveral National Cemetery. It's in Mims, 30 miles away from Cape Canaveral. It's just up the road here. And brother Steve is here to make all those arrangements for his brother Ozzy. And we had a great conversation and hope to see Steve this weekend as he's finalizing these things. We are going to have a celebration of Ozzy's life at some point in time, probably in October, maybe November. Hopefully it can coincide with when Ozzy's interned out there at the National Cemetery. He died about 2 weeks ago at age 72 in his sleep. And he's greatly missed. I was out there at a rocket launch, Selvin, the other day at Spaceview Park. It's just not the same without seeing Ozzy out there. And as part of the tributes that have been pouring in, our friend Tim Gagnon, the patch guy who is so well known with the unique patches he makes, created this patch for Ozzy that will probably get made. Of course, Ozzy is the father of the 321 area code. When Orlando got so big that they had to split the area code here with the Space Coast in 1999, he went to bat in front of the Federal Communication Commission and got 321 liftoff. That was Ozzy's phone number, 321 liftoff. And we still miss him and kind of get choked up thinking about it because what a character, and how cool is it that you're remembered the rest of your life as the father of the 321 area code. Rest in peace, Ozzy Osband. And great work there, Tim Gagnon, particularly with his little touch on it, the hobos with a Z for Ozzy there. And we also wanted to brag about some of our friends visiting us. You know Terry White there on the left there. He was on our show Tuesday, did a great program on the shuttles of the month of August. and that is the legend of Apollo, John Tribe, a hypergolics expert. Hypergolics are two liquid fuels that when they touch each other, they explode. You don't need a spark plug or an igniter. This man's been an expert on that, a British engineer that was recruited here in the 1960s. John Tribe's story will be told by him Wednesday on Stay Curious next Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss that. And it's cool to see them both here in the museum. I said, let me get a picture of you two legends here, there, and they certainly are. John Tribe he's going to tell you a little bit about growing up during World War II and being bombed and losing some members of his family, like an uncle, in the Blitzkrieg when Germany was bombing England. And then 15 years later, he's standing beside Wernher von Braun at a meeting talking about rockets. And of course, Wernher von Braun, the architect of those V2 engines that were destroying, England at the time. So great. These two guys, and Terry will be with us next month also. He's with us every month. There's John Tribe back in the old days. I said, Johnny, you still got that helmet? He says, yeah, I do. Doesn't look exactly like that, Mark, but you're going to love John Tribe. He's been on our show several times back in the old school days before the green screen, and I can't wait to hear his stories. One of the stories John will share is he was on the headsets and heard our Apollo 1 astronauts perish on that fateful fire on January 27th, 1967, and he will boldly share some of his insight to that horrible night. And to end our program, I got the opportunity to be out on a beach and shoot a streak of light. We call that the streak. I wasn't streaking on the beach now. Okay, that's a whole different thing, Selvin. Okay, this is a rocket streak shot. And there were some people in the foreground there from Scotland. And I said, I got you in my picture. I'd like for you to have it. So let's see. The last name was Stewart. Andy Stewart and his wife there from Scotland. I forget the town, but I told him that we have a listener, Robert, up in Dundee, Scotland, that's a faithful watcher. And Robert, hope you're enjoying your Friday cocktail this evening there. But that's one of my favorite shots I've done so far, being on the Space Coast there. And that's of course, a Falcon 9 with the upgraded Starlink satellites that are populating the low Earth orbit, but doing a good thing in getting remote areas of our Earth covered with communication systems. And that just reminds me that get out this weekend. You can see the Milky Way like I'm seeing it right there. That looks like a cloud vertical up there. I actually captured a meteor at the top and two airplanes crossing across. One's a dot about in the middle and one through the trees in the bottom. That is looking at Scorpio and Sagittarius directly south. The moon won't be rising till about, let's see, it rose at 10 till 9 last night, so it'll be about 10 till 10. So when it gets dark, you'll have an hour or so to look up. But then each night, the moon gets 50 minutes later rising. So Saturday night, you go out when it gets dark about 8 o'clock. You can see the Milky Way till 10. Do it. You're going to enjoy it. Take some binoculars. Get off this earth for a while, okay? And relax and just contemplate the cosmos. I guarantee you it won't be time wasted. It's a way that I rejuvenate myself all the time, looking up at my family of stars up there. They're certainly been known to me for all my life, and it's just a pleasure to get out under the canopy of stars and just wonder, is somebody looking back? And I guarantee you thousands of planets are looking back with creatures on them. So, well, Selvin, thank you for a great Streamlabs job. Pinch hitting for Marty. Glad to get him a day off, though he's doing some important family business today. My buddy, we've been together on this for into our 4th year now. And we're glad, Marty and I are glad to have Selvin learn the ropes here a little bit. So we need somebody to learn the ropes on my end here. And but I enjoy doing this, and we're always open to your suggestions and constructive criticism, which I get once in a while because I know once in a while I talk over my guests, and I got to stop doing that. Uh, but I do this without a script, and sometimes something pops in my head, and bingo, I want to say it right then because I'm going to forget it pretty soon. But we're working on taking our program up to the next level, and you taking your friends with us. So, Selvin, thank you for a great job. Do we have any comments or questions that we need to address?
We actually have some comments. Dave Stangy, and the youngest viewer, Mia, it's almost 10 months now. Cynthia Rossi, Carlton Bailey, Gary Jeriel, Marina R. from Dnipro, Ukraine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Bill, William Whiting. How you doing, Bill?
Well, see you soon, Bill. Looks like he says he's going to be here back about September 15th. He's become a great supporter and docent and just an all-around good guy that we love having around the museum here. And Bill started a little autograph club for us out there. He's one of the guys that loves, like me, getting in front of those astronauts and hearing their stories and getting an autograph or two. And of course, for us, it's all part of branding our American Space Museum with these astronauts out there. So thank you very much for y'all chiming in there. And once again, thank you for Selvin for a great job today, and appreciate our executive director Karan Conklin for helping out with the program today. And like I said, you think of a program you liked or something you'd like to hear more about or an idea, I'm easy to get hold of. marq@theamericanspacemuseum.org is my email. So, well, until next week, we're going to enjoy hopefully pretty dry weekend, and we're going to enjoy watching Crew 6 come home safely. You can see where they're going to come, either right there or right over here this weekend, depending on the weather. So until then, I'm Mark Marquette saying thank you for watching. I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.